what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon button and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, before I introduce our guests on both G+ and Discord, I'm going to shout out all of the new members. So a massive shout out to Silver Umbrella, who's joined as a hyena, and Rakia Life also joined as a hyena, the God Series, who joined as a lion, Kirk Hadley, who joined as a penguin, the FlatEarthChannel.com, who's joined as a Yoda. Big shout out to you, FlatEarthChannel.com. Also Lightwave, who joined as a hyena, and Flatulent Unicorn, who just joined now as a penguin. So a massive shout out of appreciation to all of you for supporting me by joining as a channel member. We are joined by Ranty Flat Earth, Arwin.
Hello.
Hello. Chocolate Sane and 10th Man in G+. Welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Got an all-star
Good
cast.
morning too.
Hello. We've also got an all-star cast in Discord. So hello. Hopefully you're all off mute already. You should be. Or Rams Corp isn't, so I'll just take... Oh, no,
hey guys.
Good day.
Hello.
Any signs of Earth curvature?
Not from Imperial Beach.
Not from Australia.
Nope.
Axial
I think we
rotation of the Earth-based variety, and any of that?
Any of that in the Discord? Anybody can answer that?
Axial rotation. Anybody?
Yeah, I think the panel here knows the
No,
answer.
No.
there's no evidence. No way to prove it either way.
About scientific evidence of gravity.
No, none of that either.
No.
Any joy with Dr. Becky regarding a single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, somebody behind the computer must be doing that and then forwarding the data to them. So
We've got
they're
Dr.
just
Becky.
relying upon that there must be some kind of scientific process somewhere.
Yeah,
Right?
Dr. Becky's claimed she's off to do some science and been challenged in regards to what science she's been done. I didn't know if 10th Man had any further contact from her Q&A. Ask me anything.
Still waiting. I'll reach out again. Maybe I might reach her through a black hole discussion.
Black hole or otherwise.
It almost makes me laugh, the notion of, oh, I'm off to do some science and let me go sit at my computer and check emails while listening to iTunes. Like, come on, man. The hell
Don't
science
forget,
are you
look-
doing?
Come on, Chocolate. That's science.
No, don't forget, looking at pictures from a medium that doesn't exist. That's the science part. The other stuff is entertainment while you do it.
And figuring out how things in that medium that doesn't exist act. It's great.
How'd you get the picture?
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of the container, given that we have gas pressure here, we are breathing it, and it's claimed that the sky is an infinite available volume for that gas pressure to fill. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
Excellent formatted question. The ballers just don't seem to understand English. They keep asking us to prove a container, and we keep saying, you're the one saying there's a sky vacuum. You prove you can have gas pressure without one first.
If any baller says, what's your evidence that there's a container? Reply. Because we've laid out the antecedent-consequent relationship about a bazillion times. What's the evidence? Well, we have gas pressure.
Although I do wonder sometimes, you know, do the ballers disclaim a container even concerning the universe? Or do they not?
No, it's completely uncontained, ever expanding. They do attribute values to it, which you can dig out and reference. QE often does. My initial argument, which I've just given up on giving because otherwise you can't quantify it mathematically, which they so love to do, is to point out that it's ever expanding. Into what? Well, that's kind of a problem, but that's something we will also skirt past in that conversation, right?
Nathan, they can't even decide if it's open or closed. Come on.
No, it doesn't matter what they decide. It's perfectly clearly laid out in terms of what the heliocentric system is claimed to be. Open.
Ajar.
Capable of being left.
No, it's
Matter
ajar,
can
Nathan.
leave. According to them, matter can leave. End of story. It doesn't matter what they believe when they come here and argue in the trenches. It's like when they argue about Earth and atmosphere travelling together. No, I'm afraid Neil deGrasse Tyson is your high priest, and when he asserts that a ball being thrown or kicked through a football field goal is deviating because Earth's rotating underneath, that's very much a separate Earth-atmosphere system to give you your two reference frames. So it doesn't matter what they believe in the trenches. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
There's no confirmed measured distance to the sun.
How can you measure the distance to something if you don't know what that something even is?
You're gonna have to figure that one out first.
Just guess. You just make a few
Exactly.
assumptions. You make a few assumptions.
Well, that's not scientific then, is it?
No, they're just assumptions.
That's
That's
just
that's the answer.
philosophical.
I'm not saying I would do that. You know, I would be ridiculed for saying, as I did on my interview with Vice, I don't know what it is. But apparently that's laughable. Well,
That's
beyond
the
that,
only honest thing to say.
well, yeah, beyond that, you've got to make assumptions.
Yeah.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
No, and if there was, it would destroy magnetism.
Yeah, self-perpetuating. No. That's part of what I'm asking for when I say self-perpetuating.
To me, this is still one of the more ridiculous, more fringe myths about the whole globe system. There's so very little necessity or anything to back it up. And it's, what's now the record?
It's
8
completely
miles.
conceptual.
Right, the R value.
What's
Any
your
evidence?
argument? What's your argument? What is your argument?
Do you need to repeat that 3 times, Brenda? What's our argument? We're asking for, in this instance now, new question, any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Measurements don't require evidence, right? If I
hasn't been
measure the
measured.
height of a door, I don't have
require somebody
evidence.
to measure them.
I just measure it.
Let's just answer that. It hasn't been measured. Nobody's dug down to the centre of the Earth with a tape measure, so it's not been measured.
But you don't have to. You don't have to dig down to measure the diameter of a sphere.
Sorry, diameter of a sphere. Radius. Hello?
Or the radius.
Yeah, you do.
You don't have to dig down to measure the radius of a sphere.
Yeah, you do. First, if you're going to assume that you're measuring a sphere by taking a different measurement and extrapolating it, that isn't measuring a radius. Measuring a radius would be... You're talking through me. This isn't going to be a very long conversation between us, is it now? So yeah, your assumption that you're measuring a spherical radius would be the main problem. Now you can measure other circumferences or trajectories of lights in the sky and then insert your presupposition that that will translate into a spherical radius, but I'm asking for an actual measurement.
So I can measure the radius of a spherical object without having to actually open it up and put a tape measure at the center of the sphere.
That's
I can
nice.
do that mathematically simply by
How did you figure
measuring
out
its
it was a
diameter.
sphere in
and-
the first
and-
place?
and
Hold on, Choco.
do-
Go on, Brenda.
I can simply do that by measuring its diameter and doing the appropriate mathematical calculation
And that would
without
be
having to open up the sphere.
the sphere
So
that
on
you're-
the assumption that the Earth is a sphere, I can measure it.
after you've assumed it's a
On the
sphere.
assumption.
After you've assumed it. After you've assumed it's a sphere.
Got yourself there, huh,
Oh
brother?
God, I just want to get it in once. You've got to assume it's a sphere, though, haven't you?
Well, I could build on previous knowledge that I already know
Sorry,
that the Earth
you've
is
got
a
to
sphere.
assume it's a sphere.
And
Just
from-
need a yes. Just need a yes. Yes. First, I'll assume it's a sphere. Then I'll make an extrapolation. That's what you're going to be doing.
No, I can build on the fact that I already.
No, you're going to fucking assume it. You're not going to build on Jack. You're going to build on other assumptions. You don't have to like it, Fundy.
No.
Don't talk through me.
I can build on the fact that I already
I heard.
know that the Earth is.
I heard, and I've pointed out that it's not built on facts. It's built on assumptions. Now, if you want to start arguing through your misapprehensions that they're not assumptions, I'm more than happy to do that and correct you. But I'm not going to listen to you over and over again saying you're building on something that you're not. It is based on assumption. You don't have to like it.
We already know that the Earth is.
Don't tell me what you know, you fundy zealot. Have you got anything to prove it beyond your fundamentalist assertion that you've just made? Is that it? We know.
Oh, yes, you can
Bloody
prove
Fundy.
that the Earth is. Yes,
Don't tell me
yes,
again that you know. I want you to prove it. Don't keep declaring your fundy faith.
Yeah, we do that by the measuring the shadows on the ground. You can do that if you have 3 points. You can measure irrefutably that
Irrefutably that what?
the Earth is a sphere. That's what you can.
Now take us through it. Do you want to explain how you get these 3 measurements and make the firm and obvious conclusion that you're measuring something spherical? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, it's called the. It's what the Greeks did, Eratosthenes.
Tell
You
me about
measure
it.
the length of shadows at least 3 different points on the surface of an object, and you can deduce its curvature using
Just gonna interrupt.
trigonometry
Sorry,
on.
sorry, Brenda. On the surface of an object. And what object would this be?
That would be the Earth.
And what object shape would that be at this point when you're measuring the shadows on an object? We're not assuming an object now, are we? What object is this that we're assuming?
Well, I assume that I'm standing on the ground, right? And that
And
I'm
what
standing
shape
on an
is
object.
that assumption?
You deny that I'm standing on an object?
You said object. Now I'm asking what shape. You've just got to admit your fundy presupposition, love. You've just got to admit it. That the shape you're going to be presupposing in this instance is spherical now, isn't it, love? You don't have to admit it.
No,
if you don't admit it quickly,
no.
if you don't admit it quickly, I'm going to kick you out. You're going to be assuming that you're measuring that object. Yeah? You've said object. I'm saying what shape is that object? And you've gone Earth-shaped. You won't admit that this is a presupposition of a sphere, but I'll drag you around by your short hairs while you don't admit it, if you like.
No, you don't already know what shape it is that the surface of the object that you're on. You don't have to know that. You don't have to presuppose it.
Yeah, you do. That's incorrect.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You
Go on,
just
then, talk us
measure
through
the length of the shadows, and you can deduce its
And how do you make that deduction?
with simple trigonometry.
No, you've said trigonometry. The trigonometry leads you to a deduction. We've heard the first part. Now we're at a deduction, apparently. Deducing things. What happened to measuring it? No, we're making a deduction. So I want to know what the deduction is and how it's been made. Do you know?
So, yeah. So you don't know the shape of the surface you're on. What you do is you measure the length of shadows on
We
that
heard!
surface.
I don't need a repetition. You've measured this. We heard. Now you're making a deduction.
Yes.
Yeah, and what is it?
Yes, and from that you can
Not from that. You haven't told us, you bonehead.
from that you can deduce.
Not from that. You haven't fucking told us yet. Are you dumb? Do you think I'm so stupid as I'm going to let you whistle past the very thing I'm asking for by saying "and then" when you haven't told us a damn thing? No, I'll tell you then, love. Your assumption will be that it's a sphere.
No, you don't assume it, you deduce it.
Oh, I see. So you're going to change my word assume to deduce, having not given us anything at all that leads us to a logical conclusion of your deduction that started off as a measurement and has now got this presupposition being relabeled as a deduction. No, it's just your fundy belief, as always, being imposed on some bullshit measurement you're making. Yeah, that's all your deduction is, your fundy belief in sphere.
No, it's based on simple trigonometry. You calculate the right angle.
We're going around in circles. I'm sick of it. We're going around in circles. You're going to tell us about the trig you do. You're going to tell us about the trig you do without telling us how you've made a deduction. So you're going to tell us about the trig again that we've heard 3 times? No, I don't want to hear it. You're going around in circles, leaving out the part where you assume a sphere. It's just getting stupid. You know you're ignoring that part. You know you've substituted deduction for assumption when you don't give us a shred of evidence for why or how you've made that deduction, and I assure you your deduction is just sphere Earth. And well, I'm going to deduce from these shadows that it's a sphere I'm measuring. How? Well, by that I mean that we're going to make that deduction. Perfectly reasonable. You haven't told me anything. No, we make trigonometric measurements. Well, you're going around in circles, love, and you still haven't told us. It's just an assumption. Like I told you before, this little trail of nonsense you've taken us on, this is just your assumption. Like all globe claim to be proof. None of them are actually proof. They've got a deduction in there. And what do you know? Their deduction is their outcome. Shock horror.
No, you use Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah,
right?
we've heard. That's
And
it.
you
You're not going to repeat it
measure
4 more times. We heard. We heard you do trig. Yeah, we heard. You didn't tell us about how you made your deduction, so you can fuck off now. You're not going to hear it 5 more times. We've heard it 4 already.
May I?
I think I can
address
summarize this for her though. Like, sun angles only work on a ball because I
Precisely.
don't know any other way.
Yeah, precisely. At some point, she's going to say, well, this only works if I'm on a sphere. It's a logical deduction. What, the assumption of sphericity? Isn't that the very thing you're trying to prove by measuring your bloody trigonometric angles? Oh, no. It's the deduction stage I'm not going to mention beyond the point that I've made a deduction and therefore sphere. The very thing I've assumed at the beginning of this measurement.
Yep.
Well, Ranty's on the show. Ranty, you there?
She kept saying we're going to build upon, but what is it that you're building upon?
The assumption of a sphere.
And then,
Right.
so you build upon that assumption, which you obviously have to start with because you didn't actually measure a sphere. But then you say you don't have to measure it. So you build upon it, and then what? You deduce it? So when is it measured?
Never.
Brenda?
Ranty, are you there?
I am.
It's never measured. That's the whole point.
Okay, Ranty did something. 18 miles. What did you see when you photographed 1 foot above the sea level, 18 miles, Ranty? What happened? What should have happened if it was a sphere? Let me put it that way.
I shouldn't have seen any buildings at all across that distance.
And what did you see?
Shore to shore.
So if it was a sphere, the photograph would have shown no buildings. But because in your 18-mile, 1 foot above sea level picture, shot, photograph, real, actual photograph, not shadows, you saw the buildings.
That's true.
So then the curve or sphere surface was not blocking anything.
Yeah, water wasn't conforming to 8 inch per mile squared.
Okay, there you go, Brenda.
Yeah. Brenda's input to the last housekeeping question just brought us to the firm conclusion we already know. They know how to beg the question. They know how to assume their outcome. That's all they've got. Shout out to Validation Boy. Every single globe argument ever will start with the presupposition that you're on a sphere. There are no exceptions.
I don't know why they don't see that as a big problem.
They see it as a big problem, but they can't admit to it in reality, because then that would mean many things.
They
So
don't
they're-
accept
so they're not
our
on the really huge
observations and information. They just want their numbers that works on their pre-assumed ball.
Hey, Jimmy, good to have you.
Morning. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year to you too.
Good, Jimmy.
If I can take a leaf out of Nathan's book and just say it as it is, they don't believe it because they're fundy fuckwits.
In reality, there's nothing to believe, though, right? Shout out to the flatearthchannel.com. They presume the light source is 93 million miles away. Right on. It's just preposterous. I couldn't remember the name of the guy. I was trying to explain this to my wife the other day, and there was somebody who basically put up an objection and said that they couldn't possibly be those distances. They'd have to be enormous. And then it just took that, reverse engineered it, and then you end up with Betelgeuse being absolutely vast. I can't remember the name of the guy, though. It'll come to me later. But yeah, exactly. They just make them absolutely ginormous so they don't violate the inverse square law. Ugh, just the pile of smear, the heliocentric smear of bullshit is so thick, it's untrue. But an objection literally gets reversed engineered into the reality of that model based on their absurd distances.
Didn't their high priest, Neil deGrasse Tyson, say that the shadow thing would work if the sun was close to the earth too? Someone said that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
Yeah, why won't they ever accept that? What is it, 32 miles across and 3,000 miles away? And it works both. They certainly refuse the latter. They want their giant, ridiculous numbers.
well, they don't pay attention to that part, right? They nobody wants to hear Neil deGrasse Tyson say whatever Aristophanes apparently did would work on a flat surface. Nobody wants to hear that because that's not part of the narrative that coincides with their story. So we have to, quickly hush, don't talk about that.
Arguments were
that
debunked
stuff is flat.
these arguments were debunked in 2015, really early on. And I think there's a reason behind that. I think once you get into the point where you tie down a flat earther to further assumptions about what the sun is and what it does, given these values that are measured without the presupposition of an R value. So see Smokescreen Design's response to Red's rhetoric, was Jeranism correct about the distance to the moon, I think is the title. It's a pretty elongated title, but Smokescreen Design is the video. It basically goes through the mathematics and shows where Red Rhetoric's inserted a presupposition of an R value when taking these measurements. This is like 2015. Such an old argument. But the point is that once you've done that, so once Smokescreen's done that, he's essentially committing to him measuring a 3,000 mile, or whatever it is, sun, given his angles. Well, then you can start superimposing that presupposition by a flat earther onto how will that work on this azimuthal equidistant projection that you committed to as your model now, didn't you, flat earther? And then you're fucked as a flat earther. But it doesn't change the fact that beyond that presupposition, I don't have to make a claim about how far the sun is. I don't care. I don't know. I've never measured it. But what's that you say? You know how far it is when you assume an R value. Well, that means nothing. You've assumed R.
They have no foundations.
They resist forthcoming with reading in chat. Brenda, of course, calling you a bully boy again. Brenda, all you got to do is just be more forthcoming. Just answer the question so we can keep the conversation going. But the minute you stall and hesitate and do your little games, it gets boring. So next time you come on, just answer the question. And if you don't know the answer, say, I don't know the answer, so we could keep the conversation going.
No, she went round in circles. Round and round and round she went, back from measurements to the presupposition, also relabeled as a deduction. And then back to the measurements, and back and forth we go. 4 times we went round in the same circle. But now I'm a bully?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
no,
well, that's
didn't have an argument
But
that was coherent.
how do you claim you have measurements and then in the same claim say that you don't need to measure what you have measurements for? Like, Brenda, are you out of your mind? What's wrong with you guys? You say you don't have to measure it. You could just assume and deduce and all of that. But then when we ask you for measurements, this is what you say are the measurements. And then say that you don't have to measure it.
Well, they're,
Not only that-
they're just going nuts. Look,
Not
even
only
this
that-
morning in my chat today, there was somebody literally arguing for over 10 minutes that a fallacious argument can actually give a true answer. And he thought that that was a good excuse to be allowed to make fallacious arguments with presuppositions. And he
Excellent.
honestly believed that.
Excellent segue for me to do 2 things. One, shout out Unitox Femu. He says Brenda is better than Merlin and Gandalf together. Fair enough. The other opportunity is to shout out my second channel. So there's a link in the info box to Nathan Oakley channels. Those of you watching live right now, obviously this doesn't apply if you're watching this actually on Nathan Oakley channel. You're already subscribed. But the pre-show discussed exactly that by coincidence, Arwin. So we were talking about the fact that if you are to claim the fallacy. Hello, Adam. Good to have you.
I thought I was going to be the second thing, but yeah, fair enough.
No, just noticed you.
Afternoon, mate.
I just ran this out. If you were to claim the fallacy, you've got to actually prove the thing that is being claimed by your opponent to be, well, no, just because I've used a fallacy doesn't make my claim untrue. Well, no, you've then got to actually prove your claim. Whereas if you've used fallacious logic, your claim's void. Well, if your proof at the end of that claim is the very thing used with fallacious logic, you've only got to actually prove the thing then, rather than just say, oh, just because I used a fallacy doesn't mean it isn't true. Well, no, you've got to then prove it, though. Not just use another fallacious argument, or claim that the one you used just because it was fallacious has then proved your point? Oh, these people don't understand fallacy, but there was
Right. Otherwise, it turns into just observe and declare.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Observe is there, therefore they have proof for their fallacious claim.
Right, exactly, Arwin. So if you've made a fallacious claim using fallacious logic, yeah, you can claim fallacy after you've proved your bloody claim.
Yep. So Nathan, why do you pretend that you can talk to me when you have me muted?
I unmuted you about 3-4 minutes ago.
Yeah, you mute me and then you pretend to the audience that you're talking to me, and like I can respond when I can't.
No, I didn't. I pointed out that you went around in circles 4 times.
Yes, you do. You mute me and then you keep talking and pretend as though I can talk when I can't. You have me muted.
You had nothing to say. Who cares? You didn't have a winning argument that you were in the middle of pulling through.
Yeah, so you admit that that's what you do, is that you mute people and then pretend to talk to them.
You're going to accuse me of bullying when you've just interrupted me. So, Brenda, if you go through the same fallacious argument incorrectly 4 times, I'm going to shut you up. This isn't your show. So, after 4 attempts of going round in circles, that's the end of your time talking. Now, if you think that that's bullying you, come up with some better arguments. Don't go around the same one 4 times that was debunked in 2015. For us to then have a little discussion. Shut the fuck up, you ignorant bitch. I'm in the middle of fucking talking. Yeah? Don't bully me, Brenda. Just because you think it's time for you to talk. No, it isn't. I'm in the middle of talking. Wait your turn, you rude bully. So the arguments that you've gone around, I've got to shut you up. You can't help yourself.
The bully.
You can't help yourself. You want to accuse me of bullying while you're interrupting me. Outrageous, you bully. That's what bullies do. They bully you by claiming you're bullying them. And then doing what Brenda's doing now, which is talking through me. Stopping me pointing out how she's bullying me by not letting me get to the end of this statement. Which is to say that this argument she went round in circles 4 times on was debunked in 2015. If she's not aware of it, she's mentally retarded, as she's been here that entire time. So she's either just here to argue for no point, or is giving us a nice little segue into discussing the whys and wherefores of the assumption in the mathematics of the R value when taking these measurements, and the declaration by people like Neil deGrasse Tyson that it works without the assumption of the R that you called a deduction. So you didn't win your argument, you're not being bullied, you're being a repetitive twat. And I'm going to point that out whether you like it or not. I'm going to point out that you've lost whether you like that or not, and whether you feel it's appropriate to talk through the absolute demolition of your complete garbage claim. Do you understand that?
Yeah, the argument has never been debunked. You claim
Debunked because you assumed R, you complete retard. I debunked it, you repeated it 4 times. Now, I like the fact that you have brought it up. It means we can discuss your assumptive R value and where it's inserted in the maths. You saying it's never been debunked is merely your assertion that declares your zealotry. It has. I debunked it, you ignored it. That's because you're a zealot.
you don't know even the most basic math.
That's an ad hominem, so you can fuck off again. I'll put you on mute. I am not going to be ad hommed by you after you've lost. You assume R in the argument you went around 4 times in. What are you going to do? Now I've put you on mute and declared it. Say I'm bullying you because I'm talking and summarising without your nonsense assertions being interrupted over the top of me. Yeah, you're on mute, you dumb fuck. You assumed R. I debunked that, and you say I don't know anything and haven't debunked it. You're worthy of kicking out. You're just a twat. You've lost. You don't have to like it.
I bet she loves it because she keeps coming back.
She's a masochist.
I think they just used the tactic that worked on them, which is constant repetition of a false claim. It worked on them. It doesn't really work on us.
Incorrect. They're not trying to convince me. They're trying to convince themselves. So she's not repeating it for my benefit. You say it worked on them. Yeah, and they're still trying to reinforce it. Self-reinforcement, that's what it is. She's not going to convince me that assuming R's acceptable. That's been made plain, but she's going to argue it because she's trying to convince herself.
Correct. Yeah, I think that apparent to the audience here, which people are insecure in their alleged knowledge.
As I say, it's useful. It's useful for them to come and try and affirm their own religious zealotry. It means we get an opportunity to talk about things like the 2015 video made by Smokescreen Design where he debunked it 5 years ago. Hey Adam, should we chat about R for a bit?
Oh, what did I miss there then? Because I'd been working there. So what old chestnut's been?
Sticks and shadows. Sticks and shadows proves sphericity.
Oh,
that's the claim by Brenda. Sticks and shadows proves sphericity. Simple trigonometry. And then when it gets to the point that I point out she's got to assume R at some stage, she says it's deduced after making the trigonometric measurements.
Oh, well, there is that. I mean, that one always did my head in. And I think it's Dr. Zach has the best analogy for that one, which was, how do you transport local time? So as far as we're aware, the only way they could do it is with an Eratosthenes cell phone. So we could say, yeah, the sun's overhead now you know what I mean? Here, what angle is it for you, dude? To try and pretend.
Did they have an accurate measurement of distance back then?
Well, there's the other thing. How did they accurately measure in a non-topographical way the distance between the two towns? They'd have already had to have assumed R and known all the stuff to have done the calculations to then be able to do the calculation. It's a nonsense. Or, like I said, the only other way is for them to have had a mobile phone or some kind of instant communication device that allowed them to confirm the exact time. So how the hell do you confirm the time in one town to know that it's midday in the other town unless you already know all the data? It's an impossibility, isn't it?
For back then, it seems so, yes.
Because you could do it now, couldn't we? I could say, well, it's midday here for me. What angle's the sun at for you now as we talk live? But other than that, how would I translate to you the time that you need to look in the sky?
You were there, weren't you?
Well, you just use a phone. You just use a phone.
Aristophanes used a phone, did he?
Yeah, an Aristophanes phone.
No, they just use local noon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how did they confirm the distance between those two locations?
They measured the distance.
With what?
Yeah, how?
With the measuring wheel.
Who cares?
But that would be a topographical. That's what I said, Brandon. It would be a
cares?
topographical measurement.
None of this is relevant.
Yeah,
It
there's
assumes
nothing wrong.
Didn't we
You
cover
measure
this?
it with a wheel.
So now we're going to argue about how we've measured the distance between the two cities. What about assuming R?
You don't need to assume R.
Oh, you don't?
You
Show
have
us
to
the...
the whole
Hold
point of it,
on.
Brenda.
Hold on. She says we don't need to assume R. No worries.
But
Show it... Oh, no worries. Show us the mathematics.
yeah, bring some cowbell.
Yeah, show us the maths.
And show us how the shadows doesn't work with 32-mile across sun, 3,000 miles away on a flat surface.
No, the only difference between those two measurements, Jibby, is R. That's the only difference, correct?
Yep, seems so.
Yo, Brenda, it doesn't need R according to you because you're a fuckwit. So show us it. Now. Yo!
You can look this up. There's
Yo!
thousands of
Fuckwit! You said it doesn't need to assume R, the very argument we had with you going around in circles because you're dumb. I'm not bullying you. You're dumb. You went round in circles and have now declared boldly it doesn't need to assume R, this 2015 argument. So show us. Don't tell me I can look it up, you dumb fuck. Get to it. Back your claim, you stupid cow. Yeah, so you can't back it. You're wrong. It absolutely, unequivocally requires you to assume that the Earth is a sphere in order to make this bullshit claim. So you will be assuming R, I absolutely assure you, you stupid moron. Okay?
No, you can, with three...
No, babble. Do you get it, you stupid cow? Do I need to repeat it 4 more times to undo the self-brainwashing you have performed here, you stupid monkey? You said it 4 times with assurance in your own mind that you didn't need to assume R. You've now declared it verbally. Do I need to repeat 5 more times to undo your own stupidity and brainwashing that you've demonstrated here? Because you're wrong. You will assume R, you stupid cow.
No.
How many more times?
No, you don't need to assume.
Yeah, so now you can show us that, can't you, Brenda? Yo!
Well, I can't.
Fuckwit! Get your ass in gear and go and show us the maths that doesn't assume this R value you will assume when we tell you you'll assume it. We know you're wrong. So show us it without an R assumed. Because it's already been explained only 3 minutes ago by Jibby that won't give you heliocentric distances. It won't give you sphericity because you haven't assumed the sphericity. That's why it won't work. I also explain that by doing this, it gets flat earthers to commit to this very local sun so that you can have a transposition of an azimuthal equidistant model for them to hold up as a little straw man. We've gone way beyond the assumption, and the programming the assumption you make with R leads to when you take away R. But you still think you don't need it, you complete retard?
No, you don't need it.
You're a fuckwit. Like, literally stupid.
You can...
Stupid,
because
that's what
you
you
can
are.
measure the angle.
I'm going to remove you because you're stupid. You're not giving us the cowbell. You're not showing us the maths. You're saying, incorrectly, I don't need it. Yes, you do. You are a sphere fundy. You absolutely need it. It was debunked in 2015, and the further connotations of the assumptions of flat earthers that come when we remove your R assumption are what have been discussed on this show. Now you're going to ignore all of it and simply say, no, we don't. Hand wave dismissal. The most useless of argument you could possibly present. You're useless to us.
Yep.
Shout out to Godzilla. I put 2 sticks in the ground, measured the shadows and calculated. And it's absolutely true. Brenda is a moron.
Certifiable.
Shout out to Godzilla. Thanks for the super chat.
Nathan, is there a way that you can put more people in the Discord? Because there are people wanting to join from the chat.
And Fretch, you'll have to move somebody that's on server mute. If nobody's on server mute, either pick a random and kick them to the after show. But no, because I need to be able to see them all. So if there's a load of, during that little back and forth, if there was a load of scratchy noise from some wanker with an open mic and I can't see them all, that makes life very difficult. But Paul's jumped in.
Cody, the lion retard in chat. Cody, come on in here. Mr. Moon Bounce. You didn't even know that radio waves were frigging photons. Light, you clown. Come on in here and get your ass handed to you. Okay?
Okay, I'll move a couple of people that I haven't heard anything from to the after show, and hopefully there'll be a gap.
Well, Ranty, it's interesting that Brenda didn't respond to your photograph of 18 miles for lack thereof of sphericity proof, but wanted to go with shadows 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, I think the idea of having to actually envisage the edge of their sphere and then see a building loomed up above that, for them to actually come out and say that now, it's getting ridiculous. This idea of looming, it's preposterous. Because there is no evidence for it at all.
Yeah, in QE Saturday, you're going to do a really good segment on that, aren't you?
Saturday ball busters, you gotta be there. The death of the heliocentric ball-tard religion. It's gonna be painful.
Do you want to debate sometime, Quantum? I can debate you
shut
on
up.
physics or evolution anytime. I would destroy you. You're an imbecile.
Yeah, we're so afraid, Brenda.
Look, if you're just going to stick her on mute, let's move it to the after show. So if somebody wants to join, they can. There you go. There's 12 out of 15 now, so there's 3 gaps. Who is it you were trying to get? Cody or Toady?
That's you, Toady, the lion retard. Come on in.
He was actually quite useful yesterday in Ranty's chat because Anthony was reaching for the experiment that is not actually an experiment, but nevertheless Milgram, and there was Toady quite handy at the time.
This guy's such a moron. I'll tell you what, I've just been waiting to run my friggin' playlist on you. I'll tell you what, man. You think Brenda's bad? Where do you get a load of this character?
Brenda's just a masochist. She comes here with 2015 arguments. Either she is, as I point out with most people, trying to convince themselves of the argument that she's putting forward, because we're not convinced and have debunked it, but she's still convinced of it. Therefore, she's got to repeat it.
On any new platform! Not this one, QE! Not this platform, right, Toady? What a half a sissy you are. Clown show. Go look at radio waves. I'll tell you what, I'm going to bounce something off you. Cards.
To be fair, it's one of those where I don't necessarily encourage people. I'm not going to say, come on, Red Rhetoric, come on the show. Like, the show is here. There's a link in the info box. If they want to debate you, they can. Now, with you, obviously, you go on other platforms as well, which presumably aren't too biased for them or whatever. So there's plenty of opportunity to debate you. The same applies to me or anybody else who's on the G Plus panel. You know, you can join. I don't know if that's actually true this very second. Let's just check. Yeah, there is. Thank God. There's one gap. You can join if you want to. Now, do I give two shits whether or not they want to debate me? No. But if they want to debate me, they can. That's the point.
Why chase them with
That's
their
their only. That's their only feeble, weak excuse. Go on other platforms. Well, I was on other platforms for 2.5 years, every single day, with 8 or 9 ballers in there, muting me, kicking me, over talking me for 2 years. Where were you?
Yeah, same here.
Clown.
Just that's something that bugs the shit out of me. I've done this for a couple of years. I've been here since 2015. So it's like, no, I've been on plenty of platforms debating people. Where do you think I got the idea from? Well, going out and smashing ball tards and then them muting me and them kicking me and turning my volume down. And I thought, no, I can provide a much more even platform. And for the most part, the reasonably even-handed people in the comments say, yeah, there'd be outrage if someone was actually making a winning, cohering argument and they got muted. That's not what happens. Like with Brenda earlier today, they get to repeat their argument 4 times before eventually they get shut up through absolute tedium being reached. No. That's not... You don't just get shut up for no reason here. Whereas when I was out there trying to put a winning argument across, when I was very much on other people's platforms, my platform didn't even exist. Well, I was debating with people out there, and as you say, QE, where were you? Oh, didn't even understand that the subject existed at that point, mate. Just got here in the last 6 months and want to tell me that I've got a circle jerk when I got an open link. Yeah, that's what I get all day. Horse shit.
You're a demonstrated liar, Toady. I already demonstrated you a liar. Already demonstrated you a liar, sir. And you're a moron. You don't know what a hypothesis is. We already demonstrated that too. You need me to run that on Thursday?
I had gripes being muttered from Jibby Jedi. I want to hear him. He was around while I was around on the circuit, so go ahead, Jibby.
Oh, yeah, I was saying I was there, Nathan, and whenever they invited us onto their platforms, we were always outnumbered, and they would constantly mute us, ban us, ghost us, kick us out. Your platform is quite fair to them compared to their platforms with us.
Yeah, the reality of the situation is they don't like losing. And here, we won't have our points obfuscated, and we'll give them a fair chance to actually put a cogent argument across. When it gets debunked, the hand wave dismissal doesn't work that it would on other platforms. Again, subscribe below to the second channel for the pre-show where this exact thing was discussed.
I just want to say that I've hosted 2 recent debates between myself and the Rumpus and Ruhif, and it didn't go well for any of those guys. They were still using arguments from 2015. And I think that's why they won't come here.
Your Ruhif argument was exceptional. So about a third of the way through, I was in the chat, and I was like, as soon as he begs the question, it was my almost, rudeness towards Ranty when I'm like, when he gets to begging the question, I don't want that to slide. And obviously by saying that, I'm assuming Ranty would let it slide. But instead, Ranty was taking him on a very specific journey, and he got him there. It was epic. So check out Ranty's chat with Ruhif. Very cool, calm, and collectedly takes him on this merry dance of assuming and then by the end he's going, but you don't know how to measure radius. It was just brilliant.
But the wind was blowing.
I did the same with the Rumpus as well, and I led him on a little merry dance, getting him to the end, to the point where he was actually saying that water is flat and flat is curved.
It's crept up on us all.
Oh, God, Mr. Second Law of Thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth. Shocking you got him to say that. How about Roofy with his wind? Well, you need wind because you can't take those photographs, can't take those observations from ground level because of wind. Roofy, you Dunning-Kruger delusional muppet, you. I mean, you're the poster child for Dunning-Kruger.
He's a slave to what the model says he can and can't do. The model says you can't take observations over water. Now, you know what I've got on my camera, Ruhif? I've got a shutter button. I can? It's amazing. What's that? Your model says I can't? Oh, fuck your model. and its cross-section in Muppet vision, that apparently it doesn't matter when you talk left or right. I'm going to give massive props to Ranty, because he spotted this about a year ago, tried to get it through, and it didn't sink in. It's like a lot of things. I'm slow. But nevertheless, that also came up on the show, so I'm going to paraphrase it and hopefully Ranty will expand on it. When you see Muppet vision, you've got one line between you and the target. There's no x-axis looking left or right in the image. Now, obviously, in any image that you're presented with, you've got an angle on the horizon, or a horizontal angle. And Ranty pointed out that there could be varying conditions left of the image and right of the image. You could be looking across quite a vast area, and they could have completely weather. There could be a cloud over one of them. Well, in that instance, you've suddenly got a massive problem for their Muppet vision, which only gives you one slice. It doesn't have a left or right. It hasn't even got a horizon. Anyway, can you expand on that, Ranty? Because that was absolutely epic also, on the same discussion with Ruhif.
Yeah, it's a very simple concept. If you've got, if you're taking a photograph of a span of, say, a 50-mile span or a 40-mile span, so an entire cityscape across a lake, let's say, or a mountain in the distance that's perhaps 30 or 40 miles wide or whatever, and you've got the whole thing in one shot, then if it's all in proportion, if that image is all in proportion, if the buildings that you've taken that image of are all lined up perfectly horizontal, there's no wave, there's nothing to say that one is higher than the other or one's lower than the other, there's no distortion, then that says that when you took that image, you would have had to have perfect refractive conditions from that entire 40-mile stretch, from left to right, and all the way to the camera, the amount of distance that you're actually taking the image from. So, but in their model, just a 1 or 2 degree difference from different locations will give you a different refractive index. So it will flatten it, or it will loom it. So one or the other, loom or sink. So it'll loom or sink. So when you take those images, you should see distortions all over the place, but we never do. And the reason I quantified that was because where I live in Blackpool, the temperature can be, say, 20 degrees. Over in Preston, just 15 miles away, it could be 17 degrees or 18 degrees, and you'll know this yourself, wherever you live, 20 or 30 miles away, there's going to be different weather conditions. There's going to be different, it could be raining, it could be colder, there could be a slightly cold front, warm front. Well, if you can take an image, a snapshot from A to B and cover an entire 40 or 50 mile span, then you are going to be taking imageries that have different refractive indexes in their model. And you should see these buildings all over the place when you take these images, but we don't. And that disproves this nonsense about looming and being able to be pulled up from beyond the curve due to whatever. It's just not there. It never happens. We never see this.
When you put this through
from a maths point of view, right? They're saying that these effects, just with standard refraction, 7/6R. Now, because it's not 6/6, and because you're supposedly traveling over a ball, because it's slightly out of proportion, because you travel different distances, that proportionality would then skew the image. So the further away, do you understand? So that nearer objects and different further objects would have different levels of a 7/6R refraction applied to them.
Right.
So it wouldn't resolve to a realistic image because they've been perverted different amounts before they reach your eye.
Yeah.
Sorry, just going to do a quick shout out. Sorry to talk over you, Ranty. Shout out to Alexander. The era of pseudoscience passed away. More and more people realise the Earth is not a globe. Sorry, Ranty. Thanks for the super chat, Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, Adam's quite right. If you're looking at a slight angle and you're looking at that 50-mile span, but you're looking at a slight angle, so the left-hand side that's 50, it could be 54 miles away, and the near point could be, say, 25 miles away, and you're looking at a 50-mile span. Well, if you've got the same refractive index over that, then obviously you won't see the distant buildings because they would have sunk into the ocean, as Adam's quite rightly pointing out. But I'm just trying to say that if you're looking at across a lake, and you've got a dead-on view of, say, a New York skyline or whatever, and let's suppose that skyline's 30 miles away, but in your camera you can capture a 50-mile image, right? Then you've got to have perfect weather conditions across that entire 50-mile stretch to get a perfectly symmetrical image. any distortions in the weather. You know, if you've got like a warm front on the right and you've got a cold front on the left, then it should be all over the place when you take that image, you know, because the refractive indexes are going to be different, and we never see that ever.
Just before Adam pops up again, when you put that to Ruhif, he said that it wouldn't matter. The conditions wouldn't make any difference when panning left or panning right, even though if this was absolutely the case in the Isle of Man. You're looking down the island, it's like an almond shape, and as you're looking down the island, you're looking further and further away. Well, at that point, Chris Monk, who was modelling for us at the time, pointed out that nothing in their model is where it's supposed to be. Beyond the horizon, everything's, as Adam just detailed, slightly further in terms of the attribution of 7/6R to where the positioning then lies in the image. So you've got it essentially loomed further up from beyond the curve as you pan left or pan right. Now, in their calculator, you've only got the fixed 1 degree that you're looking along the side slice with you in the picture. So in a Muppet Vision representation of a curve calculator, you've got you on the left, the target on the right, and you've only got that cross section. So you can't pan further left and further right. You're only taking into account the refractive index at 7/6 of the begging the question R value on that one slice. But in an image, like on any image on screen now, we're not just seeing one slice of this then flipped around on its side 90 degrees with the photographer in the representation. You've got a complete horizontal representation, and as Ranty's pointing out, you could have a weather front over here and sunshine over here. You know, on the left-hand side of the image, it's perfectly clear weather with no clouds. On the right, you've got clouds and a weather front coming in. So it's potentially going to be very different in terms of how it represents itself. But because they're only taking one cross-section and then flipping that on its side 90 degrees so you can see you on the left and the target on the right, well, you've got no panning across a horizon when you're looking from observer to target. So, again, in Ruhif's mind, because the model doesn't account for it and can't, it doesn't matter. Well, yeah, it bloody does matter. We're dealing with reality. My last point is that when Ranty pointed all this out, Ruhif challenged him to provide the proof of any of these claimed to be conditions that would make it vary. But yet he's perfectly content to assume one single cross-section with none of this making any difference, and are begging the question R value of a sphere Earth, and a light bending over it at 7/6R without a single measurement being taken. But Ranty's objection requires measurements. But his assumptions sound. Just absurd.
Yeah. Yeah, but the wind wasn't blowing, Nathan.
Yeah, too close to the ground.
And another thing, you're talking about a person. Here's what Roofy said to, I think it was Ranty. 2 statements that he said to Ranty. I think it was Ranty or Arwen. I can't remember. Here we go. Roofy, so you understand that an area with the same elevation is a curved surface. That's Roofy number 1. Roofy number 2. Sea level is a curve. This is who you're talking about here.
And with that, I'll say if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive thank you to all of the new members, people who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!